Hello, my name is Dr. Emmanuel Toye Shobande. I am a strategic leadership expert, executive coach, conference speaker, and award-winning author. I want to welcome you to the Leadership Factory. The Leadership Factory is a platform where we offer creative insights and solutions to businesses and leaders. On today's episode, we are discussing the topic leadership under strain. Leadership under strain. Why containment, not control, determines performance. You see, the most revealing moment in leadership rarely happens during strategy offsites or earning calls. It happens quietly in a tense meeting when the room goes still and everyone senses the leader's mood before a single word is spoken. Shoulders tighten, voices soften, ideas retreat. Nothing has been said, yet everything has been communicated. This is the most important moment when leadership either becomes a stabilizing force or a source of silent strain. In last week's episode, we examined how fair, not flawed strategy has become the dominant execution risk in many organizations. This week's question goes deeper and more uncomfortable. So, the question is, when pressure arises, does your leadership contain anxiety or does it transmit it? Modern organizations are operating under extraordinary cognitive and emotional load. Board members are demanding faster returns. The market is less forgiving. Transformation circles overlap without pause. Leaders, especially at the very top, are carrying unresolved tension while being asked to project confidence and decisiveness. You see, the danger is not that leaders feel pressure. The danger is what happens when that pressure leaks. Psychology has long understood a concept called emotional containment. In simple terms, containment is the capacity to hold complexity, anxiety, and uncertainty without displacing it or projecting it on others. In leadership context, this skill determines whether teams think clearly or operate defensively. When leaders lack containment, they compensate with control. They tighten decision rights. They over-communicate urgency and unknowingly create environments where compliance replaces contribution. Research from organizational psychology consistently shows that teams exposed to high leader anxiety experience reduced cognitive flexibility. People become risk-averse, narrow in their thinking, and reluctant to report problems early. Execution slows not because employees lack skill, but because the system no longer feels safe enough to think out loud. Psychological safety, often discussed abstractly, is in practice a byproduct of leadership emotional regulation. Let's consider what happens during an enterprise transformation. Systems are changing, roles are shifting, and ambiguity is unavoidable as a result of these changes. Leaders who attempt to manage this complexity through relentless monitoring and constant correction often believe they are being responsible. In reality, they are signaling mistrust to their team members. Over time, the team stop bringing forward half-formed ideas, early warnings, or dissenting views. The organization appears calm, but beneath the surface, decision quality deteriorates. Contrast this with leaders who practice containment. They do not deny urgency, but they metamobilize it. They acknowledge pressure without dramatizing it. They ask questions that slow the room just enough for thinking to re-emerge. Their presence communicates, guys, we can hold this together. That message alone restores confidence and restores the capacity of the team to function effectively. One global CEO I worked with during a high-stakes systems integration described the subtle shift he had to make. He said he realized that every time he opened meetings by referencing deadlines, consequences, discussions become very shallow and everybody becomes quiet. He said, however, when he changed tactics and he began to open the meeting with clarity about priorities and permission to surface or report constraint, the same team members became more candid and solution-oriented. They were speaking up. Nothing about the strategy changed. It was just the emotional climate that changed because the leader changed. For leaders listening to me right now, the practical application begins with self-observation, a self-observation of you as a leader. So, where does pressure show up in your behavior? Do you interrupt your team members when stressed? Do you default to answers instead of inquiry? Do meetings become tighter, shorter, and more transactional? These are not personality traits of a bad leader. No, they're just signals of unprocessed strain. Containment does not mean passivity. It is an active discipline, a discipline that requires that leaders should separate what belongs to the role from what belongs to the moment. Yes, the board expects accountability. Yes, but not emotional leakage. Teams do not need direction, they need direction, but not transferred anxiety. So when leaders fail to make this distinction, they unintentionally turn themselves into the bottleneck. This is where reflective leadership becomes operational. Ask yourself these questions. When results are lagging, do people move towards me or move away from me? When bad news surfaces, does it arrive early or is it reported late? When decisions stall, is it because clarity is missing or because psychological safety is missing? These questions are diagnostic, not rhetorical. They reveal the emotional architecture of your leadership. The most effective leaders I observe are not the calmest by temperament, but the most disciplined by practice. They regulate before they respond. They pause before they escalate. They recognize that their tone sets the ceiling for organizational thinking. In environments where leaders model steadiness under strain, teams reciprocate with ownership and resilience. They speak up, they contribute. As this new year unfolds, many leaders are still calibrating pace, priorities, and expectations. This is the moment to decide what kind of pressure your leadership will generate. Will it compress thinking or expand thinking creatively? Will it create silence or signal psychological safety? Will it push people into compliance or invite contribution from your team members? The challenge this week is simple but demanding. Before your next high-stakes interaction, ask yourself one question. Am I about to manage my anxiety or am I about to pass it on to my team members? Then choose containment over choice. It's a choice. Choose containment over control. The organizations that perform best this year will not be those with the most aggressive plans, but those led by individuals strong enough to hold the weight of uncertainty without making it heavier for everyone else. Leadership under strain is inevitable, but leadership that steadies others is a choice. I encourage you to make that choice. Thank you for listening to me. For more insights and engagement, you can send me an email. Send an email to contactme@toyeshobande.com. And pay attention to the announcement right after this. See you next time and watch out for our next episode. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.